Hi, everybody. This is Slava Kurilyak, and I am super excited to kick off today's live stream on the topic of photography and AI technologies. For those who are not familiar, I run an AI agency based in Vancouver, Canada, and for the last 8 years, I have partnered with companies around the world to implement AI technologies so they can scale to the next level. Today's discussion is meant to be interactive. Today's discussion is meant to be engaging, educational. So I encourage everyone who is listening to actually ask your question in the comments section below or to your right side, depends where you're joining from. Make a statement if you have something to share. I'm more than happy to highlight your comments with this live stream. I also would like to try something new this time around. I would like to invite everyone who's joining us to come into our video studio. You can do so with the link I will share with you right about now. And the link is go.produvia.com/live. If you are in the comment section, you will see it show about right now. And this is a link that allows you to join my video studio and allows me to also highlight your question and highlight your insight with the rest of our audience. So if you are in a place where you're able to share access to your video or audio, then I encourage you to hit the link and join me as we discuss photography and artificial intelligence. Having said that, I do want to highlight that this live stream is aimed at entrepreneurs, decision makers, and executives who are working either in the photography space or interested to use photography in their day-to-day life. And photography is an important industry to consider because a lot of what we do uses our eyes, and photography is just one bridge towards how we perceive the world. When we take photos, when we take videos of the surroundings, we're able to use this visual data and interpret and share findings with the rest of the world. Perhaps it's a designer who's interested to capture a moment, or perhaps it's a company who's interested to use video. Now, photography is a skill that can be learned by anyone who's interested. Photography is an industry that has many facets of specialization, including imagery and video, and more recently live. And photography is a domain that I personally have an interest in because the higher quality the photos and videos that I can learn to take, then everyone benefits. This live stream is sort of as the result of multiple technologies coming together, everything from live streaming to video to cameras and hardware, audio devices. All of this data, all of this technology is working synergistically to provide you the value that you are looking at. And this particular live stream is also aimed to give back to the community, to educate, to inspire on what is possible. And I also want to start things off with the simple fact that photography can be made better using AI technology. So let's break this down. So if we're thinking about the concept of photo creation or video creation, well, this is one way that AI technologies can help. AI technologies can help perhaps either to make recommendations for which photos are better, or make recommendations on which scenes of a video are better. So if we imagine the context of a designer who is already taking photos or videos, now we're answering the question, how can AI augment their raw imagery and video? And one of the ways to do that is to develop a recommendation system that leverages AI technologies, that's powered by computer vision and deep learning models, and it's able to recommend one photo, it's able to recommend one video above the rest. So AI technology is one application that we've discussed so far is its application to make recommendations to designers, to videographers, for which picture is better. Now, the recommendation itself is powered by examples that AI system has seen. And so the best case scenario is for AI system to learn through examples. What is a good photo? What is a bad photo? What is a photo that has great lighting? What is a photo that has poor lighting? And so the more examples we share, the better we teach AI systems to give us recommendations. And imagine you take a burst shot. Imagine you have taken 50, 100 different frames of a specific moment in time. Being able to recommend one frame to the photographer that is by far has the best saturation, has the best clarity, has the best contrast ratio, has the best light. This is a hard problem to solve. When we have lots of similar photograph data, how do we teach AI systems to recommend just one? And this is one example of what's possible. So far we've discussed how AI systems can recommend different sort of key frames that are better than others. We can recommend better photography photos against others, and we can also recommend better videos. And we do need training data. We do need examples to teach these systems what better looks like. However, this is a feat that's quite possible. So the second use case I wanted to discuss on this live stream is the use case of improving imagery or improving video. Okay, so now we have a designer or videographer and they have completed their raw capture, if you were. Now comes the editing part. The editing process is critical if we need, as a society, to come up with better imagery and better video. And image editing and video editing are an essential components of the workflow of designer. And so the question arises, can we use computers to augment the design process? And the answer is absolutely. And more importantly, can we use AI technology to offer suggestions for perhaps how edits should be done? So the editing process and improving the editing process is the second way that you can go about using AI technology. And the way that it would work is perhaps we have a video and it has conversational data. Perhaps it's a person speaking in that video. And one way to improve that would be to catch all of the blunders, all of the ums and hums and things that we as people don't want to show in video. So the first way is to detect elements that are less important, less necessary for video production. And so we can make recommendations to video editors, for example, and suggest ways to crop video automatically based on filler words. So this is the second example that I wanted to share. And there are many companies who are doing both sides of the problem. One is figuring out which images or videos are better, or figuring out which part of a video contains filler words. And to the designer or the videographer, this saves them a lot of time. So if individuals are interested to leverage AI technology to save time, then it definitely becomes an important element to consider. I also want to welcome Rael for being here. Thanks, Rael. I appreciate your comment. The goal of this live stream is to share information, and the goal of this live stream is to inspire and share best practices for how individuals and companies can use AI technologies to scale their businesses to the next level. And I really appreciate your comment. Moving forward with the third idea, and I encourage everyone, our future listeners, our existing listeners, to think about, what problems do you face in the photography space? Are you facing problems with achieving a certain level of production quality? Are you facing problems with imagery or video editing? Are you facing problems with the raw capture process? I encourage you to think about the problems or frustrations you face, because that will allow you to better understand sort of what's happening from the sort of problem space perspective, and now you can start to consider what are possible solutions. So far, we've discussed two ideas. One is on how you can use AI technology to better represent the raw images or videos, to make recommendations for which imagery is better. The second use case is how you can use AI technology to edit images and videos. And before I move on to the third example, I wanted to share with everyone one example of a company that I think is doing the video editing part and quite well. This is a company that I'm not affiliated with. At the same time, this is a company that I have used myself, and I am able to speak from my personal experience. This company is called Dscript. That's D-E-S-C-I-C-R-I-P-T rather. And Dscript is a company that allows anyone who's creating audio or video to perform something called overdub, whereby software aims to rewrite or re-edit parts of the audio or video based on your own voice, based on how you sound. So perhaps it's able to detect that you have made a mistake, and the software is able to use your voice to overdub or dub over your previous recording. And this is a fascinating application of how you can use AI technology for video editing. Now, as I mentioned before, detecting filler words is another good example of video editing, and as well as audio editing. So if anyone's interested, Dscript also does filler word detection, and it's powered by certain technologies, including machine learning, computer vision, and natural language processing. And I think that's a good segue into the third use case of the technology, which is using AI technologies to create new content. So we're not looking at existing imagery or video. We're not necessarily editing that data, but we want to generate something that did not exist before. We want to perhaps generate a similar image, or perhaps we want to generate a similar video. And this is another problem that has a lot of potential. And here we're aiming to use a different technology. This technology is called image generation, and it's powered by computer vision and deep learning models. Computer vision models are today by far the best AI technology for anyone in the industry who's thinking about using AI technology to solve problems. Being able to use AI technology powered by computer vision allows companies to leverage visual data and use data that allows them to make sense of both images and videos. Computer vision models, or CV for short, allow practitioners, data scientists, to create very unique problems that can be used to augment the practitioners, as well as problems that can be used to fully replace the traditional processes. So whether we're talking about helping designers or videographers to edit videos and save them time, or we're talking about editing the imagery and video automatically without the necessity of a person or a human in the loop. And both scenarios are possible. And I also want to sort of step back a moment and reflect upon the fact that AI technology is a spectrum. AI technology is not something that is either a 1 or a 0. It's a spectrum of how companies can leverage the technology to achieve a certain outcome. And imagine the best case scenario is an outcome where we're aiming for full autonomy or full automation. And so that means that we have individuals and companies who have no automation or zero automation, and then it starts to progress. We have partial automation, conditional automation, and eventually full automation. And if you're interested to learn more about different levels of automation, then I highly encourage you to read my blog post on the topic of full autonomy. And what I'll do now is I'll share the link with anyone who's interested. This is a topic that I wrote back at the end of 2020 called Organizational Levels of Autonomy. And feel free to check that out in the comments section. Great. I also remind everyone who's joining us today that today's broadcast is slightly different. It's slightly unique. And the broadcast is actually aiming to invite individuals, invite industry to come with me on stage, come with me into the studio and ask questions. And the way you can do that is if you go and click on the link that I shared with you in the comment section. I'll put the link right now on the screen. And the link is go.produvia.com/live. This will take you directly into my studio where I can give highlight to your comments. I can give highlight to your questions and bring you on stage with me. So if you're interested to come on stage, don't be shy. Moving forward to the next element of our live stream, which is what is possible with computer vision, right? So I want to sort of step back and ask a high-level question. What's possible with computer vision technologies, and as well as what are perhaps some of the most common computer vision models that we see today? Computer vision technologies, as I've previously mentioned, allow individuals and companies to deal with visual data. And so one of the best ways to go about it is to solve sort of one problem at a time. And without me diving deeper into technology, I want to highlight at least the top 5 problems that are being solved today with computer vision. So it can give you a better sense of how photography or how photographers can leverage this technology. So the first is something called semantic segmentation. This is the area of domain where we aim to put a box or a map or some sort of a contour around objects inside an image, right? So imagine you take a picture and that picture contains a person or a car, and the AI technology using semantic segmentation is able to differentiate between the person and the car. This is very important, especially for sort of self-driving or autonomous driving applications. The other example that I wanted to share is image classification. So imagine you take 1,000 different photographs on a particular exhibition or tour, and you want to quickly categorize them without visually looking at each photograph, without manually going through photograph at a time. Image classification models allow individuals, practitioners, and companies to holistically bucket or group images based on different categories. So perhaps it's an indoor or an outdoor shot, perhaps it has poor lighting or great lighting, and these categories are really up to us as practitioners to figure out what is the best category to represent the image. Next common use case of computer vision is object detection. So here we're not just figuring out what's inside the image, we're not just figuring out a map of that object, we're also putting a box around each object. So perhaps we can identify multiple people in a picture or a video, we can identify multiple objects, and each object will get its own box. Think of it like object tracking or object detection. It's just 2 different ways to say the same thing. The next specific problem that I see a lot of companies aim to solve is image generation. And I definitely would like to speak more to this topic in the upcoming examples of how individuals and companies can use computer vision models to solve photography problems. And image generation models aim to generate images or videos on demand. And the 5th and final best practice for computer vision models today is pose detection. So pose detection is the concept where we're aiming to detect the body language or pose of a person, right? This is important. In photography, we can instinctively tell if a person is slouching or sitting up straight or standing straight. But if you can teach computers to do the same, you can teach computers to understand the body language of the person. Now, there are many applications, not just from sort of fashion, but all the way through sports. Imagine being able to detect the motion of football players in real time, right? This presents an opportunity for individuals and companies to get insights from these types of sort of data analyses. So a simple way to think of it is, if you're a coach and you want to use AI technology to bring insights to your players, well, you can use computer vision technologies, which will perform pose detection, and they will actually be able to tell the coach which players are tired, which players need to take a bench, which players need water. By analysis of the body language, we can actually make predictions of what is the state, the physical state, the emotional state of the players. And this is another good example of how you can use the technology. But I also want to start moving forward and discussing some of the variations of image generation. But before I do, I want to also start discussing some of the technologies that companies are using today to solve image-related problems. And that is, we often see companies use one particular architecture to solve photography-related problems, and that is convolutional neural network, or CNN. And I encourage you to reach out to me and text me at any given moment. I'll share the text on the screen right about now. And this is a way for you to actually follow up with me after the live stream and ask your questions, and feel free to get in touch with me, and I can further guide you on any specific example I mentioned so far, as well as guide you on the implementation of AI technology to your specific problem. So if you are interested, feel free to reach out to me by text. My number is 1-778-655-9292. Moving forward to the model that's most adopted is the CNN, and this model is very powerful because it is very well suited to deal with imagery and video data. And CNN has been extremely popular in the community of machine learning sort of space, and it sort of has created lots of different subtasks, if you were, that individuals were able to solve. So I mentioned the basics of image classification, semantic segmentation, object detection, but you can also do things where you can add imagery and text together. And here you can answer other questions like abstract text summarization, question answering, and document summarization. So these are just a few examples of what's possible. And I encourage you to think about what problem do you face. And the problems that you face oftentimes will allow you to figure out what is the best path forward. If you see one problem and it's more painful than the next, that's usually a good indication that you should look at that problem first. And the other sort of hack or a trick is to look at your frustration. What is frustrating in the photography business? What are you frustrated by when you use either cameras or video? And frustration is an opportunity to solve a problem. It's an opportunity to look at the same frustration in a different way. So I encourage you to do that as well. And I also encourage you to brainstorm ideas. Right? This live stream is meant to give you insights that you can use and give you ideas that you can leverage to solve problems. And I also encourage you to schedule a phone call with me if you're interested to brainstorm ideas for the photography space. There's just so much potential out there. Companies are spending billions, millions, thousands of dollars on AI technologies to help them to generate revenue, reduce costs, and save time. And that's an important sort of distinction to make, is that the technology itself is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used to empower individuals and companies. And so the real value comes from understanding the return on investment. It comes from understanding what is the potential of the AI project. What is the potential of the AI system? Once you understand the potential, once you understand the impact, now the technology is easier to implement. The design, the architecture, the research and development of AI technology comes second to understanding what impact do you want to make, what benefits do you want to share with your customers or your users, and what impact do you want to make on the world, right? The questions of why you're doing something are more important than how to do something. And if you need guidance, if you need clarity on the how, then I encourage you to reach out. And if you do reach out and you want to schedule a phone call with me and my team, feel free to go to the link that I've posted so far, and that's produvia.com/start. I'm also going to type it in to make sure everyone's able to access this link from the comments section. Great. Now we can move forward with the concept of what is the best way to leverage image generation or video generation models. So we've discussed the concept of how can we help designers to figure out what media is better. We've discussed the concept of how can we help visual practitioners to edit the data, but we also want to explore the possibility of creating data. How can we help non-visual folks? How can we help folks who are not designers, who are not videographers, create content which is truly realistic, which is truly hyper-realistic? And to achieve this, we need to look at technologies such as computer vision, such as image generation to accomplish this. These technologies are often different than more sort of classical approaches of computer vision. And that is because they rely on different architectures. They rely on different methods to come up with their sort of solution. And one of the most important concepts to understand, and I highly encourage you to look into this if you're interested to learn more about image generation, is you can look into a concept called Generative Adversarial Networks, GAN, or sometimes referred to as generative models. Now, a GAN is a generative model, but a model is not necessarily a GAN. So keep in mind there is a small difference between them. However, oftentimes they are used interchangeably. Having said that, GAN is a very powerful concept that has allowed companies to really implement better ways to generate images. GAN is a model that was introduced by Ian Goodfellow. I believe the year was 2014. That's now close to 8 years. And so this is a model that actually uses two components. So on one side, you have a generator, and on the other, you have a discriminator. And what they do and how they work is that the generator model is coming up with new images and videos, and this discriminator model is asking the question, is this real or is this fake? Is this what I expect or not? And so the way that AI systems improve, the way that they're able to generate more realistic images and videos over time, is that the GAN discriminator is simply not allowing the generator to generate poor images or videos. The discriminator is raising the bar every time that the generator is creating a new image. And so because that bar is high, the generator must do more work to come up with hyper-realistic images and videos. And GANs actually is, or for that matter, generative models are one of the ways that we often see today the proliferation of deep fakes. For those who are not familiar, deepfakes is a technology or a concept rather that has spread online because we've had individuals and companies use image generation models, use GANs to come up with different content and put that content online. Now it's called a fake because the content is generated by a computer, by a deep learning model, and that content is not true. So we're generating text, we're generating images and videos, and that text is going online. So this is the circumstance of technology that is used to spread fake content, hence the name deep fakes. And the GANs or generative models are behind the scenes working at it. And this also shows us as an industry that these models are very powerful. They're very performant when it comes to creating a high accuracy or high quality images and videos. And so the models show the potential of the technology. They also show its limitations. If we're creating content that looks and sounds real, then the question is, what is reality? Can we tell the difference between real and fake? And this discussion is aimed to focus more on the photography element. However, if anyone's interested to learn more about the implications of AI on society as opposed to business, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. So far, we've had an overview of what's possible in the photography space, right? We've discussed a few of the most common approaches to how individuals and companies can use computer vision models to solve photography problems. We've discussed the concepts of convolutional neural networks, which are predominantly used to solve a variety of image-related problems. We've also discussed a generative adversarial network or a generative model, which is very common to solve image generation or video generation tasks. And regardless of the approach you take to solve a specific problem, there's just so much possibility out there. And so if you're interested to learn more about how AI can be applied to solve problems, I encourage you to reach out and schedule a call. And again, that link is produvia.com/start. And you'll find the link itself in the comment section below. I also want to thank our future listeners and our existing listeners for being here with us, for engaging with this conversation, for sort of being patient as I walk you through different examples or different implementations. I know that technology sometimes can be challenging, it can sometimes be frightening, it can sometimes be complex, but the goal of this live stream and live streams that are similar is to come up with technology that is enabling individuals and companies to solve real problems. And I think that's the best element of this tech, is that if we can solve real problems, then we can really make an impact. And I think the next element that I want to start discussing here is what is possible, not just from the software side, but also from the hardware side. And today we see companies who are raising millions of dollars into crowdsourced projects, by walking into VC and angel meetings, and they're raising capital because they want to create hardware which has on-premise or on-site chips powered by AI technologies. So what does that mean? So today we have cameras that are being created, and they have embedded inside the camera, inside the motherboard, a CPU or GPU, or sometimes even a TPU that allows them to integrate AI technology into the camera itself. Now, this is a groundbreaking technology because we need to be able to process data on the device. We need to be able to process and make sense of data and offer some sort of insight to the individuals who are handling the camera. And this is actually a great way to go about using the tech, is you apply it directly on the device itself. You don't force the designer or videographer to jump off the device. You don't force them to open up their desktop or laptop. You simply give them exactly what they need at the right moment. So perhaps it's everything from figuring out the best way to autofocus on the existing frame, or perhaps it's figuring out how to dynamically adjust focus as the person or object is moving inside the frame, and everything to which moment is the best to capture a shot, which video is the best to represent a specific outcome or goal. So AI technology is now embedded on cameras. Companies are now creating these hardware units as an all-in-one solution, and that's allowing individuals, it's allowing non-ML practitioners to use the technology without developing technology. And that's actually a very important distinction, is that yes, you can learn about the fundamentals of AI. Yes, you can develop the technology, but you can also use it. And there's just so much out there in the ecosystem that allows people to leverage products and services. And by leverage, I mean use, pay for, without developing, without spending the time to create it themselves. Using services, using products is one of the best forms of leverage that anyone has. They can save themselves time, they can save themselves often money, and they can get started oftentimes with a few clicks of a button. Now, when individuals or companies are unable to use existing services or products because the problem of the complexity of the problem increases, or the specific use case becomes different from what was intended by the vendor, this is the opportunity to reach out and speak to AI practitioners. So whether you're interested to speak with myself and my team, or you're interested to go online and find AI experts who will help you to create applications that will give you the outcome you're looking for. And if you are interested to chat with me, I encourage you to reach out and schedule a brief one-on-one call where I'm happy to give you additional insights. I think this is a good moment to wrap up today's broadcast. I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank our future listeners for watching and listening to this. I remind you that this is a live stream that is also being recorded. So if you're interested to hear an earlier moment in time, if you're interested to rewind and watch this from the beginning, feel free to do that. This is aimed to educate. This is aimed to inspire. This live stream is meant to share best practices. So hopefully today, this particular live stream has given you that. I would like to also mention that if you're interested to subscribe to our upcoming events, feel free to hit on the bottom or right-hand side, depends where you're joining from, the bell icon, and this allows me to basically give you notifications for upcoming events. Whether you're joining me from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, OK, VK, Twitch, Periscope. This is being broadcast on multiple social platforms. So I encourage you to hit the bell icon and subscribe. And if you're interested to receive an email for the notifications and upcoming events, then I encourage you to go to produvia.com/subscribe. I'll now type this in the comment section, and this will allow you to actually be one of the first to know by email what is happening. You will know about all of the upcoming events. And this is an opportunity also for you to join upcoming events and ask questions. Sometimes live streams can be intimidating. sometimes raising your hand, asking a question can be intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. I'm here to educate, and I'm here to share best practices for how anyone can use this technology. And definitely, I encourage everyone to subscribe so you can jump into our subsequent live streams. And I also want to mention that I do live streaming on multiple platforms on a daily basis. So if you're interested, tomorrow we will take another industry and do a deep dive where we discuss how AI technologies can help entrepreneurs, business folks, and executives to leverage this technology to change the world, to make an impact, to change industry problems. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank everyone who has joined us on a Wednesday. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.